Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
No, but we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. Guess what?
What, Abby?
I'm so excited. I'm in the mood for giving.
You're in the mood for forgiving? You want to forgive?
I forgive you. I forgive you for all of the things you need to be forgiven for.
All the things.
No, I'm in the mood for giving.
Oh, you want to give? What do you want to give?
I want to give some prizes away.
Oh, you want to give away prizes?
You really didn't know where I was going with that, did you?
No, I wasn't.
I saw the light bulb finally connect.
I was like, it's so late. It's 10 o'clock at night. We're recording.
Do you have the capacity to record right now?
Oh, I totally do.
Oh, okay. I had a migraine today, and so I drank caffeine.
Ooh.
And took so many ibuprofen.
So you're charged with capacity.
So
now.
I finally feel good. Right now it's 10 o'clock at night, but I'm like, let's just get the day started.
You're funny. Guys, this is a fun little thing. We're giving away something.
We're doing something we've never done before.
Super cool. So we're just going to hit you with that real quick, and then we're going to move on to an episode that Abby came up with, brainstormed this little ditty, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Yeah, it's kind of really cool. So, all right, here's what's happening.
I feel so loved.
Oh, yeah. Toss a little love your direction.
You're just publicly affirming me.
So, you goof. So
I was soaking it in.
It's a season for giving.
It's a season for giving.
And because of that, we want to give something to you guys that you can give away.
Yeah. Or keep it. Whatever you want to do.
But we're making your Christmas real easy here.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Right now are the signups for the Living Fully Alive course. It is life-changing. You will meet your people. So many people met their best friends. So many people came out of their shells, learned to have a voice, came alive, learned how to feel, learned how to have compassion for themselves and others, shut down their inner critic, become powerful, face the things that they're scared of. Like, it is life transforming. Repaired
connected with their children again.
Yeah. Whole families have been changed. It is beautiful. So right now is the sign up time. It starts in January through almost April. It is the way to launch your year. You don't have to figure out how to do it on your own. Let us help you through it.
Now, here's the cool giving part. So for
people are like, you said you're giving a gift.
So for this week only 1 week, the 5th through whatever it is, Monday the 5th through whatever, 2022, you can go to justinandabby.com.
justinandabby.com.
On the landing page, there's going to be a pop-up. And in that pop-up, you can sign up for our mailing list.
Our email list.
Our email list is going to send you a promo code.
Ooh.
And with that promo code.
A promo code. That's what we're giving everyone. That's the gift.
There you go.
Promo code.
With that promo code, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to go purchase Living Fully Alive, any one of the options there. And what you're going to get is a free Father series. So Father series is a $200 series. It's like got, I think, 12 hours.
It's a workbook, and it is
full-blown workbook.
It is amazing. We spent hours. They are phenomenal questions, journals, prompts, activities, activations, imaginations, visualizations. And it is such a beautiful course. We go through what you need from a dad, stories of good dad. Like, it helps reparent you. You go on the journey of healing your father wounds.
We actually spent a couple hundred hours collectively creating that. Not just the audio content, it's an audio series, but creating the workbook from episode to episode in a way that would actually lead you on a really deep journey. A lot of times there's stuff
really
like
deep
this
journey.
that they're like ask these like very
they have like 10-minute segments. Most of the e-courses like this have 10-minute segments and then fluff questions.
Yeah, fluff questions.
That you could look up online.
This is like if you were to go on a year's worth of counseling journey over father issues and stuff like that.
It's surprising we never talk about it because I'm really proud of it. Also, a lot of the episodes will make you like cry because you feel connected to love. Mm-hmm. There's really great banter. There's really good stories. Yeah, it's a good product.
Yeah. That's one of my more favorite things we created. We did a good job on that.
Give it to the person who you screwed up. Fathers out there, get it for your kids. Kids out there, get it for your dad. You want a better dad? You want your dad to love you better?
Yeah, right.
Try to get him to do that.
Yeah. So with that said, what it'll do, if you do...
Moms, get it for your moms so that they're less of the a-holes. Because you know the song by John Mayer? Fathers, be good to your daughters because daughters will love like you do.
Sure, I don't
Girls
even know what you're talking about.
become mothers and turn
Stop
into
talking.
lovers.
It's your caffeine and it's overloaded you. You need to be shut
So
down right now.
fathers,
I'm
be good
turning
to
you
your
off.
daughters too. I'm just saying the song talks about how much women need healing from father issues too.
It's true. It's very true.
Fathers and mothers, they all need fathers.
With that said, if you do that, you sign up, you get the promo code, you'll be able to purchase it. But once you purchase Living Fully Alive and this gets sent to you, you can't back out of Living Fully Alive. There's no like loopholes.
Oh yeah, you can't like get the promo code, get a free book, and then return the.
It's in the fine print. So
yes, that's good that we're telling people.
Yeah,
we're watching that Pepsi Jet documentary, and so it's like we got to make sure they know all the details.
Pepsi, Where's My Jet?
Yeah,
on Netflix.
Yeah.
Anyways, with that said, speaking of kids,
so if you get something for yourself, you get a $200 gift you can give to somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
You look like such a generous mother effer.
So with that said. You keep cutting me off. Your caffeine has overloaded you. You are not allowed to have caffeine anymore.
You know, I never have caffeine except migraine days.
Yeah, I know. So with that said, we have an episode talking to parents today. And this is going to be a really...
Or also kids.
Kids as well.
It explains it for both sides.
Yes,
it's going to explain what the progression of children to adults should go through. And it's going to explain what it's like for the parents as they're going through that.
It's going to do all that. All right. Now that we've got you turned on, we're going to let you wound up. We're going to let you go. Take the episode, Abby. You're fired up.
I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, I do feel like something that's been on my mind is thinking about attachment theory. I love learning about attachment. We've dug into it a little bit. We've had a few episodes on here. We'll probably continue to have more because it really has helped me understand myself, our relationship dynamic, and my friendships with all of my closest friends. Yeah. Like attachment theory has massively helped inform me of why I do what I do and why I feel what I feel inside of the relationships around me. So I'll just give a broad overview. Everybody needs attachment. Everybody needs secure attachment to feel like we belong, to feel safe, to feel like we're wanted and we're loved. And we also learn at young ages that our needs may or may not get met.
Yeah.
So there are some families where you feel like your needs are going to get met regularly, and that is a secure attachment where you feel like your needs matter. They're not going to be belittled. They're not going to be ignored. They're not going to be chastised or yelled at. But you feel like you're going to get your comfort needs met. You're going to feel heard. You're going to feel seen. You're going to eat. You're going to get your physical needs met. Like you just trust that you're going to get your needs met. Now, most of us didn't grow up in homes where that was happening regularly. Honestly, to be securely attached, I think you need to have parents that are regulated on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So they're emotionally regulated, so they can actually give to you and attune to you and help you learn co-regulation. So being regulated is like, I can be at peace within myself. I'm calm, I'm present, and I'm not in trigger brain. So I can actually see you. When I'm in trigger brain, I can't see you. I'm just figuring out how to survive, or I am thinking through my confirmation bias, or I'm feeling like you're attacking me. So trigger brain, if your parents are triggered a lot, like I think my parents were triggered a lot when they were raising me. And so there's lots of things they did that wasn't very logical. There's lots of ways they couldn't actually see who I was or what my heart was, because once they're triggered, like I think my dad had hatred for the women in his family. And so if I did something that reminded him of his wife or his mom or his sisters, then I think trigger brain took over and he just assumed I was the same as them. So you don't understand your kids as much in trigger brain, but you also, your relationship circuits aren't on when you're triggered.
Yeah.
So you're less soft and less attuning. So if you grow up in a home where you're regulated, you're going to be able to have empathy and compassion for your kids. You're going to be able to understand where they're coming from. You're going to be able to meet their needs. Most of us did not have that as the most common reaction. We had parents that we either knew would meet our needs sometimes or would never meet our needs.
Right.
So there's a lot of kids who grew up where they thought their needs would never get met and they become avoidant, where they actually learn, I have to meet all my own needs. That's the only way.
Yeah.
And it feels so vulnerable to have needs because they probably won't get met.
Right.
And so avoidants often look like they don't have needs, but that's not true. They have needs the same as everyone else. They're just so terrified of being rejected or feeling abandoned or not having someone come through that they just learn to meet them all themselves and go internal so that they cannot be disappointed.
Which is an extremely lonely situation if you're an avoidant attacher, because I mean, you have this deep loneliness that you're not aware of, and you feel like you're satisfied within yourself, but then you don't understand why you're depressed and hate the world.
Well, you also typically are that person that's all self-sufficient and feels like nobody is powerful enough to help me.
Yeah, nobody's capable.
Nobody around me can help carry this. Yeah. I have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulder. You know, like I think a lot of times oldest children can go into avoidance where they're like go internal, though they can also go into anxious a lot because they're trying to fix everyone.
Yeah, but definitely avoidance are live on an island of isolation.
Yeah.
And self-sustaining. Self-sufficiency. But you're not actually fulfilled inside of that space. Anyways.
Well, we're all made for connection.
Yeah.
So this is the connected life.
There you go.
We're all made for connection. So you have avoidance. They learn to be self-sufficient. Then you have anxious. So that is a lot like I grew up where sometimes my parents were so good at meeting my needs. There's lots of ways that they did attune to me and they did listen to me and they did care for me and they did hear me. And then there's also a ton of ways that they were narcissistic and in their own world. So anxious attachment learns my needs will get met sometimes. And so they have a lot of peculiar behavior that they do in order to try to feel secure attachment, in order to try to get their needs met. So it could either be like people pleasing, like I'm going to make you happy so that you'll be safe and you'll love me. Sometimes it can be like, I'm going to throw a fit to try to get your attention because I just want to feel connection.
Yeah. Start fights.
Yeah. That's a
out
real
of nowhere. I just want to start a fight.
Yeah. If you're feeling abandoned or neglected or rejected and you have anxious attachment, you can throw a fight that has nothing to do with anything.
And people around you are so confused going like, I don't understand why there's a problem all of a sudden.
But it's because you can feel people's passion towards you inside of fights. So you feel some level of connection.
Yeah.
Or some anxious will like run away to try to get you to pursue them. Or anxious can play games sometimes. And they also can get like needy. They can get codependent. They can, there's a whole spectrum. Basically, they're trying to do whatever they can. They're hypervigilant. They're trying to do whatever they can to try to get the love that they need. So avoidance feel like I'm fine. I don't need love. And anxious are like, I really need love. I need to find a way to get it. Mm-hmm. And then you have concoctions. You have anxious avoidance who do both, who kind of vacillate between the two.
It's kind of like a push-pull.
I think probably both me and you are anxious avoidance. There's ways that you have had avoidant and there's ways that you've been anxious.
Yeah. I think I probably lean more towards avoidant and you lean more towards anxious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's created a lot of dynamics in our marriage because the more you've gone avoidant, the more anxious I've been. And then you thought I was more needy. So then you go more into avoidant.
So you get into a bad dance.
Yeah. Because you're wanting autonomy.
Yeah.
Like you want to feel like you are a person who gets to have boundaries. And the more you have boundaries, the more needy it feels like I get. And the more needy it feels like I get, the more you feel like you have to go be by yourself to protect yourself.
Yeah. So it's a spiraling out of control. And this happens in a lot of relationships in general, where all of a sudden people are blowing up, and it all comes down to attachment style. And once you understand, oh, this is what this person is needing, it's not that they don't love me, it's not that they want to just take from me, then you can begin to have healthy conversations around your need and then meet in the middle ground instead of just feeling offended at each other all the time.
Yeah. Like I remember when we first got married, your avoidant would show up like this. Like I'd be like, hey, do you want to have dinner together? And you'd be like, oh, I already ate. I just made myself some food and ate by myself. And I'd be like, you did what? Like, I mean, I'm happy for us I guess we can eat separately, but why eat separately? We could eat together. We could make food together. That feels like a common thing that people who live together do, is make food. And so the more you just did behavior, you'd go to bed without saying goodnight. You do things like that because you were in your own internal world. The more you did that, the more rejected I felt, because I was like, I don't know where he is. Oh, he went to bed and he's asleep and didn't bother to acknowledge me as a human. And then I would feel hurt by that, and then would
start a fight.
I didn't try starting fights. I tried talking about it, but I don't want to digress into our bad dance, because that's not what we're trying to do here. I didn't start a fight. I tried to talk through it. You just said that my ideas were stupid about people eating
I thought you
together.
didn't want to digress.
Okay. So anyway, we can get into bad dances, and it is pretty common. So I'm wanting to talk about this is in all areas of life. We all are vying for attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And secure attachment is the best attachment. It's where you feel safe that your needs are going to get met. You feel like someone loves you and wants to be with you. Attachment theory, a great example of it is they had parents leave their kids, like toddlers. They went out of the room for a while, and then they came back, but they didn't look at their kids when they came back. They didn't acknowledge their kids when they came back. And they studied that different kids at that young of an age had different responses. Some kids like ran up to their mom and like tried to like comfort or make her laugh or like get in her face. Other kids ignored their mom and waited and just played by themselves. Other kids. So it's like an interesting thing. We're all made to feel delight, and like we're around people who want to be with us.
Yeah.
So secure attachment, you feel wanted, you feel loved, you feel pursued and known.
Yeah. And therefore you end up feeling very confident, rested, at peace with yourself.
Regulated.
Yeah. Safe.
Yeah. The interesting thing about anxious is like when I have friends who lean in where I feel like they create secure attachments, I'm more independent around them.
Yeah.
Like I don't get more needy the more they meet my needs. I get more independent. It's like the common misnomer is that anxious attachment with reassurance actually becomes less needy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you overwhelmed so far?
Nope.
Just letting me go?
Just letting you wound yourself up with some caffeine. You keep riding that bucking Bronco.
Okay, so all this to say, I wanted to talk about the journey of attachment between kids and their parents as time goes on, because I don't think most people are aware of this and understand this dynamic. And when you don't understand this dynamic, either as a kid or as an adult, it can get very wonky.
Yeah. And speaking, I would say first to adults in the conversation, it's very easy for parents to feel fulfilled by kids, because kids come into the picture and they just love you relentlessly.
Yeah.
They are so like bounce back. You can like do horrible things and they're just like, yeah, but you're my dad and you're my mom and I love you. And it's this
daddy.
And it feels like this unconditional love that we were actually designed for, this unrelenting, unconditional love. Like that's at the foundation. That's at the core of our design.
Yeah.
And so kids, when they're young, they're like, oh, I just love you no matter what. You can do no wrong. I can be really hurt by you and stuff, but I still love you and I choose you.
Yeah. Kids have, all of their needs are getting met by their parents. They're not very picky. They are just like, I love you. I love you. I love you. They're fully dependent. They're fully attached.
Yeah.
You know, neurotypical kids, which is what we'll say. There's always outliers. Like, so Peetsy's daughter is a great example. She's autistic. And so her attachment journey has been different than a neurotypical journey. So there's lots of different reasons that kids may not have this
capacity to
typical attachment cycle. Right. But we're going to talk in generality about a typical attachment cycle.
Yeah, totally.
So kids, they're little, and if they can attach, they often fully attach and have secure attachments that they are creating with their parents.
The thing is also for kids, parents are their source.
Mm-hmm.
It's their source of well-being, source of life, and almost like their God source. So one of the things that happens is like, there's going to be a deep attachment to this thing because this thing is all provision, all encompassing. So there is a full oneness between them and the parents.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is why, I mean, you hear this over and over and over again. You hear parents talk about how transformed they are by being loved unconditionally. They talk about how their kids want them so much. I mean, I literally have just had multiple conversations lately with my friends that are like, my kid cries when I leave. It feels so good to feel wanted and needed and adored.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kids do.
Yeah. You have someone like, say, Eminem. He all of the early days of his stuff was always talking about his daughter Haley.
Yeah.
Like he had so many beefs with so many, his ex-girlfriend and all kinds of other people. But then there was like his daughter Haley.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear that from a lot of people. You hear some of the most messy human beings on the face of the planet, and then they have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they're like, but I would die for my kid. Because it's not just that you love your kid. And I think that that's something that in parents' heads, it's like, oh, I just love them so much. But they're not actually aware of, oh, part of what I actually feel isn't just my love for them. It's my love of what I receive from them.
Yeah. And not in a bad way. Like,
right.
I want this to be clear. Oftentimes, I think having a kid is meant to bring healing to our lives.
I agree.
It's meant to help people encounter unconditional love. It's meant to, I think it heals people's hearts. They recognize things about their own childhoods. They feel wanted and loved in a way they never have. I know for my mom, I think I was the first secure attachment she had.
Wow.
And I think that often happens with kids and their parents. Like it's the first time somebody feels just unconditionally loved and wanted.
Yeah.
And attuned with. Because, right, kids are often neurotypical kids. You can often have at least one in the family that is attuned with you, that knows when you're sad, that recognizes what's going on inside of you, that cares about you as well.
Yeah. And then oftentimes as the story progresses and the kids start a development process, there's so many parents that are like, I don't understand. Like my kid's just like so disruptive and aggressive, and they're going through kid development stages, right? But the parents are feeling so many big emotions. This is where parenting, I've heard so many parents come in and just have complete, utter meltdowns about their experience. And it's not just that they feel out of control to their kids' behavior. It's that all of a sudden
they do, because it's crazy feeling powerless to a little booger.
Yeah, especially as they get older and older. But it's this thing of something starts falling apart, and it's like my buddy, my friend, my attachment all of a sudden is disappearing. This thing that my life has been built around is suddenly doesn't seem to want me. And I hear a lot of parents feel deep rejection. Like my kid doesn't love me. My kid doesn't care about me anymore. I don't know what happened. They've just turned into this other person.
Well, and you have to think, if you felt rejected a lot in life, which I think a lot of people have, just as you incur normal life things. Normal. Now you have a human who loves you unconditionally for a few years, and it feels like that's going to last forever.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't last forever. Kids Like the interesting thing is we're talking about, parents will be like, I'm so messy and I did all these things wrong, but my kids love me so much. I'm like, yes, they do. But as time goes on, whatever behavior you're doing that hurts them eventually affects them.
Right.
It eventually does create pain for them.
Yeah. So early on, kids bounce back, like we were saying, and it seems like they're just really forgiving. It's just like, no big deal, no big deal, no big deal. I just want you. And as autonomy starts to develop in
a sense of self,
and all that starts happening, all of a sudden the things that like we felt like weren't creating like a buildup inside the kid starts coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the interesting thing, I remember both my parents talking about this part of the process. And so the one thing I want to just say is it is a natural progression for kids in healthy homes to be fully consumed with you and then get less and less consumed with you. That is the natural progression of any child, is that they are growing in autonomy. They're growing their sense of self. They're growing their ability to be a human separate from you.
Yeah. Which is what you want.
You want
like
that.
You don't want them living in your basement like for the rest of their life. For their sake.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to go out and live life.
Yeah. And have autonomy.
Yeah.
And so, I remember both my parents talking over and over again about the moment that it shifted, the moment that it changed, the moment that I started to be more independent.
Right.
And if you're not expecting that as a parent, it can feel wildly whiplashing. And one of the things so attachment wounds, I think, hit harder than any other wound. I've never had something affect me as much as attachment wounds. And so if I feel secure in a relationship and then suddenly it doesn't feel secure anymore,
yeah,
there's a panic that I feel on the inside. Now, I haven't always been on alert as much as I have been after I went through trauma, because I think trauma does that to you. But the idea is, I know, let's say that we were parents, I know I would really freaking bond to that baby because it would be wonderful. It'd be unconditional enmeshment, which is what I grew up with. And it would feel so freaking addictive to me. And when my kids started to become independent, I would start to have panic, and I would start to have all my attachment triggers go off, and I would start to have all my attachment behavior go off.
Spiraling into a dark depression.
Well, I don't know if a depression, there'd be anxiety, there'd be fear, there'd be probably some codependency, some control. Like I would do behaviors where I'm going into self-protection.
Yeah, totally.
And so
and when this happens, by the way, this is where a lot of lashing out happens from parents towards kids. This is where there's a deep chasm that starts building, and I've watched it.
Yeah.
Because the parent doesn't understand.
Or a small chasm so that people don't trivialize it.
But what happens is all of a sudden, a parent doesn't realize, oh, this is attachment stuff coming up for me. And so then it becomes a war. It becomes like
a battle with the kid.
Yeah. So, and so they keep furthering this disconnection over and over again. And the kid, as the kid is trying to find autonomy, now is feeling trapped and overwhelmed and having to fight. And some of them will just tap out and just stay enmeshed and just whatever. But
well, even then, that is also a pain point.
Totally.
Like they'll either become avoidant or they'll become anxious. But to create kids who are securely attached, you need to be securely attached to them, which means you need to not be in anxiety.
And I've heard a lot of parents be like, I'm just trying to love you. I don't understand what's going on. I'm doing everything I can to love you. And it's like, once you understand, okay, this is an attachment issue for you, and this is part of the natural progression of the development of a kid. All of a sudden you can go, oh, it's okay. Like it's going to adjust the way that our exchange of love looks like. And I'm not being rejected here in this space.
Right. Or I am being rejected here in this space, but I need to find a way to process that rejection that brings me into healing and wholeness instead of trying to make my kids stay my source. And that's, one of the things, like I know with my mom, so I was her secure attachment. I would say probably till around 8 is when I remember really starting to get autonomy. And then I started to become very aware of how I felt when my mom did certain things. And I started to have big protectors. I mean, it was probably before then, but I'm just saying I remember by then having that thing. And then I would say every year from 8 moving forward, I got more and more self-protective. So my mom got very enmeshed. So I got independent in certain areas and then very anxious and enmeshed in other areas. I did both.
Yeah.
Trying to make her happy, trying to appease her while also feeling like she's going to consume me. And part of it, she couldn't do secure attachment with me because I was her primary attachment source.
Right.
And so she wasn't close to my dad. They were at a war with each other and she didn't have a lot of close friends.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I was the main source of attachment. Now, I'll say even in our marriage, when you were my main source of attachment, it made our connection very high stakes.
Sure did.
Because you can't fill all of my connection needs.
No, it's not possible.
We're meant to have like several primary attachments.
Yeah.
Not just one person. Because then if you're avoidant at all and all of my attachment is based on you, yes, then I am having my whole body trigger. I'm being activated. Now, I wasn't aware of it. I would have never told you I'm having an attachment crisis. I would have never told you I even cared. But I had subconscious behavior that was acting out from that or getting frustrated or not handling it.
Yeah. And that happens in a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
Across the board, couples do this all the time.
Yeah.
Where they don't have enough outside connection. Like, and we're not just talking about like, hey, I go bowling every once in a while with someone else. It's like people that they share life with, share their stories with, are known by, that they can lean into for support when they need it.
That they feel loved by, that they can be honest with.
At any point right now, I have 8 to 12 people that I can solidly go to and lean on and feel okay. And that's you don't need 8 to 12 people, but that I've built a world where it's like, oh, I do feel really supported, and it's okay if someone's falling apart. I have plenty of options. I'm not alone in this world.
And I would say I have less than that. I have like 3 to 4 people that I could go to that I'll share all of the things with. But now, because I'm aware of my attachment system, if you're going through something or we're not securely attached, I will call Pizzi and I'll have a conversation with her and I'll allow that feeling of secure attachment to help me regulate back to feeling loved, to feeling wanted, to feeling like I matter. And then I can often come back to you in a regulated relational space and interact with you in a different way.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, like, I have a friend where I often don't feel secure attachment with them. And so I will start to feel my attachment system activated. I'll feel like a little bit of panic. And so then I'll just go hang around people that I feel safe and secure with.
Yeah.
And it helps me stay regulated. And so what my mom needed was she needed other attachments
besides you,
where she could create secure attachments. Yeah. And I exactly what I just said is a good example. I have some secure attachments and then I have other attachments that I'm not secure in. And it doesn't mean you're a good or bad person. We're all growing and learning how to create secure attachments.
Yeah.
But the idea is, if my mom would have gone on the journey of learning how to create secure attachments outside of me, it would not have triggered her so deeply when I started to become more independent.
Right.
And me and my mom got into a bad dance. I became more independent. She freaked out because I was no longer her main source of attachment. So then she got needier. So then I felt like I had more of a need for autonomy. And that is the cycle that can happen.
Yeah. I think that that's something that was very apparent inside of my relationship with me and my mom. And my mom created me, put me in a space like your mom did as a primary source.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've dialogued with her about this at some level on the podcast. But putting me in that space meant that she got extremely angry at me when I couldn't show up and fulfill all these excess needs and she's dialogued about that too, where she's just like, oh, I was angry at you. Which
is anxious attachment, right? I'm throwing a fit in hopes that then you'll meet my needs.
Yeah. Yeah. So that drove a bigger and bigger wedge. Like eventually that ends up breaking me, that style. And then I'm like, I don't want anything to do with you. Like I have to protect myself from being taken from and being expected to be something I was never meant to be.
Now, the interesting thing is most parents aren't aware that they have attachment triggers with their kids, and they're not thinking through that their kid was probably, and kids are also the safest form of attachment because you're bigger than them and you can make them do shit. You can make them spend time with you.
Yeah.
Well, one, when they're little, they often want to spend all day with you. Like they just want to follow you around and be your shadow. But then you can like literally force them to be with you. And on some level, most people feel more attuned with by their kids than anyone because their kids sees the way their spouse treats them or their kids sees how hard their life is.
Which then turns into dialogues, by the way, deep conversations oftentimes where parents are like, yeah, I'm angry at your dad because of, I'm angry at your mom because of, and you create a buddy system and stuff.
Yeah. And so it feels like the safest attachment because you're getting that secure attachment need is to feel seen and heard and wanted.
Yeah.
And so you go through this process where you feel all of that when they're a kid, they start to grow up, you still get hits of that really safe attachment. And now when some kids end up being like, peace out, I'm done.
Yeah.
And some kids lean in and are like, I'll be your savior forever, mom, dad.
And they never get out of the system of that stuff. They stay in the cycles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe not never, but it can take longer. Yeah. Some people may never.
I see people well into their 60s still trapped with their older parents, and they're like, I have to take care of them. Yeah. I have to be everything to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're kind of trying to bring awareness, compassion first. Like, honestly, I empathize with parents all of the time because once you know what it feels like to desire secure attachment, and you know it's more addictive than anything I've ever experienced in life. To feel the electricity of secure attachment is magic. It is like a substance that your whole body drinks in. And then when it gets taken away, it's like being a crack addict and your crack dealer won't give you any more crack. No, this is very true. We are all addicted to connection, whether we want to admit it or not. Even the avoidants who are avoiding it at all costs, they're still addicted. They still have it. I have several avoidant friends, and they deep down really want connection.
Yeah.
They just are terrified to let themselves need it and be disappointed.
Yeah.
So once you understand that, you start to have compassion for people.
Yeah.
I have compassion for, Johnny, Pizzi's husband, is an avoidant. So now I see like, oh, he feels so unsafe right now in a fight with Pizzi that he's submarining into himself because that's the only place that feels safe. Like he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I have so much compassion for why he would do that. Oh, my mom finally thought her needs were going to get met and she thought it would be like that forever. I honestly think, like you have a good 3 years, at least 4 years, maybe when your kids are like fully adoring of you, you think it's going to be like that forever. And you feel that endorphin hit. It's the love you've been waiting for your whole life.
Yeah.
And then to have that taken away feels crazy.
Yeah. Well, what about on the flip side when you have like a child dying for a parent's approval?
Yeah, that one's hard too. That's because the kid really wants secure attachment and the parents are avoidant and refusing to meet their needs. And that's honestly an autonomy protection. They are trying to, they don't want to be disappointed, or they don't know how to have intimacy, or they don't know how to connect to the kid. And most of the time, if you never learned how to bond, you don't know how to bond with your kid.
Yeah.
So if you never learned secure attachment, I know so many parents, they never were taught what it was to ask a question, to be interested in something else, to get excited about their kids' passions and hobbies. Like they never were taught that. So they don't know how to do that. And so it feels like to the kid, like no matter what they do, they can't get enough for their parents' attention.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. And there's a level of grieving that you have to do as a kid.
Yeah.
Like man, I wish my parents could give this. And I wish what I really wish you could do is flip a switch in your brain that was like, this is not about me.
Yes. In which way?
Well, like if a kid could be like, my parents don't know how to love me, but that is not because I'm not lovable.
That's not because I'm a failure and I'm not.
It's not because I'm worthless. It's not because I am not worthy of their time or their energy or their compassion. It's literally because they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, it's one of the number one things I deal with is trying to help people understand that this was never about them. Just years of pain, and they drag it into their 30s, 40s, 50s. They're still.
Well, I know I do it myself.
Yeah, totally. And that's not a bad thing. It's just we have to begin the process of really deeply understanding this was never about me. This was never about I'm not enough. This is never about I was a failure. This is never about like my love was never in question.
Yeah.
My parents didn't have the capacity to communicate that love. My parents didn't have the capacity to connect. They didn't understand it. It wasn't modeled to them. It's not something, it's foreign language connection to them.
Yeah. You've got to think if your parents didn't experience secure connection, they don't know how to create it for you.
Well, not only do they not know how to create it, but then there's a decision that's made that's, I don't need that.
Yeah.
That's not something that's needed. I just don't need that. That's not who I am. You just don't need that. Not everybody needs that. Those are the types of conversations people have because they had to put it in some sort of category or box. Like, where do I place this if I'm never getting it and I have to figure out how to survive without it?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people are like, I don't need it. You don't need it either.
There was so much of that where I was able to build a life structure where I was like, I don't need that. It's just not who I am.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And when we got married, you're like, I don't need this. You shouldn't need this either.
Yeah.
And it was complicated because we were coming from different extremes.
Yeah, we were.
But there's no jabbing there. It's just
I didn't
facts.
take that.
Great. So I think as kids, being aware that if your parent, like if your parent isn't leaning into your life, it's probably because they're an avoidant.
Yeah.
And if you understand avoidants aren't avoiding you because there's something wrong with you, they're avoiding you because they are afraid. They're afraid of disappointment. They're afraid of their needs not getting met. They have learned the only person safe to depend on is themselves.
Yeah, totally. And so they're surviving.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is every year that your kids get older, especially then you turn into the teenage years. And that's when kids are trying to learn their sense of self. They're trying to learn autonomy. Who am I? What do I think? What do I, and then they have higher copper levels, which is a real mind F for everyone. Because when you're a toddler and when you're a teenager, you have higher copper levels, which copper makes you not emotionally regulate.
Yeah.
Like it makes your emotions so big. So that's why toddlers throw huge fits and teenagers throw huge fits because they have a lot of copper. Their bodies are actually having a hard time regulating. And so a friend of mine used to describe like as kids, they're fully dependent on you and you are every year walking them towards more and more independence, like more and more autonomy. Every year you're wanting to empower them a little bit more than you did before, a little bit more. And you can empower them while still creating a secure attachment. And a couple of the things I think my counselor, I asked him one time if he was going to talk about parenting, what he would say the top 3 things he does is. And he said, what if I forget now? He said, attuning, compassion, and joy. Nope. It was attuning, joy, and boundaries. Those were the 3 things he said were most important to him in parenting. And he's a phenomenal counselor. That's why I see him. I really like him, but he actually does that in his sessions. He's very good at attuning joy and boundaries. And so when I think about secure attachment, I'm thinking like, you feel happy to be with me. You enjoy being with me. Like kids are made when they walk into a room and their parents' face lights up, like that affects their entire sense of self. Joy is one of the things that affects our ability to feel loved.
Chosen.
Yeah. And then attuning, that compassion, that empathy, that understanding. I'm getting into your world and I care. And then the boundaries, which is like, I love you and I care what you feel, but I also have
standards and expectations of how we're going to relate together. And within that, actually, people feel really safe when there's boundaries. So kids, it's like they don't need you to make every decision for them, but they need you to give them choices, but not choices that destroy them, like an overwhelming sense of choices.
Yes.
So boundaries with even kids is really cool because they're like, here's 3 options.
Totally.
Like, I have an ability to have autonomy through choice, but it's within limitations that don't overwhelm me.
Oh yeah. Pizzi went through something with Moses where he was getting paralyzed about choices and having OCD. And she realized she was giving him too many options and his brain wasn't ready for that yet.
Yeah.
But so my concept is you can grow, your kids can become teenagers and they can grow. You can still have joy around them. You can still show them delight and love. You can attune with them and you can still set boundaries.
Yeah.
And your attachment can change and still be secure.
Yeah.
It may be different in every, attachment secure attachment doesn't mean it feels the same in every season. Just like me and Pizzi, like some seasons we talk every day, some seasons we talk once a week, some seasons we talk once a month. Our attachment level can change. That doesn't mean that our secure attachment is different.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that majorly changes a relationship in a good way is when parents can understand that kids are not ever meant to be your source, your source of life, your source of identity, your value. People might be listening to this. You're not bad if you've done that.
And it's really, I don't know how you don't, like, especially like stay-at-home parents, whether it's dads or moms, their whole world is their kid.
Right.
You don't even remember what adults are talking about. And you miss having friends and you it is consuming. It's a 24-hour job.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. So you have to work very deliberately about like, hey, what is my source of life? What am I drawing from that actually brings me life? Because I can delight in something, but I don't have to draw life from it. I don't have to take it out of somebody, but I can delight in Abby, but I don't have to draw life from you so that you're the reason I survive. I can be like, oh, I love you and enjoy you. And I am actually have this healthy autonomy where I can be able to draw life from.
I have passions that I have outside of you. I have people that I'm connected to outside of you.
I have a connection to a creator that's much bigger than you and anything around me that I feel like I draw life from, Yeah. So that's big.
Yeah. So none of this conversation is meant to shame anyone. It's actually meant to help enlighten. If you have felt those feelings of panic or grief or what happened, and even a lot of parents will be like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like they hit an age and it's like, what did I do? And it's like, no, remember your kids should be growing in autonomy every year. And also, you always have the chance. Every parent always has the chance to create more secure attachment.
Yeah.
More secure attachment doesn't mean more life-sucking attachment. Like it doesn't mean like the more secure you feel, you might be more independent, It's that feeling of I can always come back. I have a home base. I have a safe place.
One of the things that we can do, because you might be listening to this and being like, all right, like, what do I do with this information? And maybe you fall in the place of realizing like, hey, maybe the way that I've created a relationship with my kids is been difficult. Depending on where they're at in life, like, especially if they're older, there might be conversations where you sit down and say like, hey, I realize that there were a lot of places that I felt very insecure about your development. And sometimes I hindered you. Sometimes I tried to control you. Sometimes I tried to pull from you as like this source of like, you're my only source and stuff. And I'm just sorry. I needed to get more friends, or I needed to actually have a lot of other connections that were healthy.
I didn't know how to do that.
And you might have kids that like, you don't even have problems with them. You just realizing they might have brought no problems up whatsoever, but you realize realize like, oh, this is what I did. And it might be good just to bring it up like, hey, I would love to hear how that affected you. There may be things under the surface that you've never talked about with me and the way that I've related. I'm still relating in some ways like that to you. And I want you to have the freedom to be autonomous, to have healthy boundaries, to not have to be worried about me all the time. I want to figure out how to develop relational connections that are fulfilling inside of my life. Things like that. Those are very brave conversations. Those are very healing conversations. And they're also very freeing conversations because they don't just free the person across from us. They free us. They free us inside of it.
From shame, from blame, from pain.
Yeah.
It allows us
and it's not just one conversation. It's dozens of conversations sometimes about this stuff as you learn more about yourself and you seek to learn more about your kids and so on and so forth. Yeah.
And I think for kids, like people who aren't parents yet, this helped me so much in understanding my life story. When I understood attachment and attachment trauma, my entire childhood made sense. Oh my gosh, my mom felt so fulfilled by me. Of course, she felt so loved, so safe. She got the things she'd been longing for her entire life. Oh, then I started to pull away. Oh, she felt panicked. Oh, she grabbed a hold. That felt scarier for me. I needed more protection. So I hid inside myself more. She got more. Like I can see the progression of our storyline and it makes sense. And it actually gave me compassion because I know what it is to want attachment, to want security, to want to feel safe.
Yeah.
And some people don't. I mean, honestly, an attachment trauma is what helped me understand this more than anything. Like I was decently secure in attachment before I went through a season where I lost all of my attachments at once. And so now the ability for me to relate to people when I see somebody dating some person that's crazy for them, I'm like, oh, they're in attachment trauma. I do that too. I do crazy things in my need for attachment. You know, it is a very, if you can empathize with it, it can help you understand the motivation for why people do what they do. I think people get more blinded by attachment pain than any other pain.
I think another thing is if you're listening to this and it provokes something inside of you as a kid with a parent, your ability to not only have compassion and understanding on how maybe your parent got there, but forgiveness is radically freeing because what ends up happening is oftentimes when we hold unforgiveness and we have judgments towards others, we end up repeating cycles.
Oh yeah. We do the exact same thing. And that's the crazy thing. I know if I had kids right now, I would have done the exact thing my mom did to me.
Yeah.
100%. I don't even think now I would be better. I would have to work so hard. I'd have to see a counselor so much just to try to not overbond with that kid and not make them my source of identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So I think that, this is an invitation for deepening connection when we can understand partly how we've been relating, because what we want to see is we want to see families reconnected. And a lot of times there's families that are they're severed in the relationship because of unspoken things like this that we just don't understand. And it's just like, oh, my dad is so needy and takes from me. And there's a lot of
my parents don't care about me at all.
Yeah. Or my kids don't care about me. And it's not an issue if we don't care across the board. It's like, oh, there's a lot more at play inside of this. And I'm really understanding and seeking to understand like how and why we're functioning the way that we are brings grace, compassion, and then it rebuilds trust and it rebuilds connection. So yeah, I think that this is a really important conversation. We want to see, especially going into the holiday season, like that families would continue to move towards reuniting and reconnecting and repairing. Like that's what we want to see is restored family connection.
Yeah. Speaking of forgiveness, we have a course where we dive in really good. That's one of people's favorites episodes in the course in Living Fully Alive, where we dig into forgiveness. It's so good to intentionally start. We have so many people who do LFA every year because they say it's so good to intentionally start over their year with intentionally engaging things that are life-giving.
Yeah, it's so cool. Well, I really appreciate your caffeine high. Riding that horse.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I just think We need to have more conversations about attachment theory, even just like what all the behaviors look like. Because the more you can recognize it, the more empathy you have for everyone. We should do another Love is Blind episode about all the attachment issues on that show.
If anyone has any connections to people who have been on Love is Blind out there, seriously, we would love for you to reach out to them, because I'm sure that there's only a couple of degrees of separation. And we would love to have somebody from Love is Blind on here. Oh. So if you have any connections,
but only the good ones. Just kidding. You know they are.
But I would love to have some conversations with them. So,
yeah, me too.
And if we have anyone else in our network that's listening that has any connection to Candace Cameron Burr, I would love to have a conversation with her about some stuff. I have a friend I might get her on here. So
you're so funny.
But I'm going to start letting people know in our network who I want to have conversations with,
see who can get
to them and get them on our show with us. So we're going to start giving names out. And we want this person, we want that person. Because I have people write in all the time and they're like, "Hey, you guys should have this guest on." I'm like, I don't really know what it is if they're not my relational network. Yeah. Like how to pursue that and get that. So I poke around because I have influencer friends, but they have to have the same, connection upon connection. So I've got a lot of managers' numbers that are starting to come in. So I got their manager's number to help you with, but direct connection. So we're going to start doing that. Anyways, super fun having this conversation.
Hey, you know what that makes me think of?
What?
I was thinking about all the guests I would want on our show. And then I thought, I've had a lot of them on here already.
I love the people we've had on.
We've had such great people. But I was thinking about Paul Young and how he's in the Father series. And it's like one of the best episodes with him. Yeah. I weep every time I listen.
It's so powerful. I still have people to this day trying to find it on the Liberation Project. I'm like, it's in the Father series now. We took that
Here
down.
we go. Get the Father series for free, guys. Yeah. JustinandAbby.com.
Rate, review, subscribe, and share.
We should get a jingle.
Stop drinking caffeine.
Like, wouldn't it be funny?
The only reason you want a jingle now is because you drink caffeine.
What if we had a jingle and it was like, go to JustinandAbby.com.